I'm Sarah Wilson, and you're listening to the Roots and All Budcast. Hello, and welcome to this week's Budcast. I wanted to release this as a full episode, but the second half of this interview is really important to anyone who loves plants, and I felt I should share the information sooner rather than later. Graham Blunt's nursery Plantbase is a cornucopia of fabulous, fantastic and frankly bizarre plants, and if you're an exotic plant nut, you'll be blown away by some of the things he grows. The plant names come thick and fast, so I'll be releasing a supporting blog post for reference where you can check out the names and some photos of the plants that Graham mentions. And if exotic plants aren't so much your thing, stick with it anyway, because the information he imparts at the end has serious and potentially very dramatic consequences for anyone buying or dealing with plants. And it's information that not many people in the industry or the media are talking about right now. So strap in for a fast ride through exotic plants and plant legislation with the super knowledgeable and indefatigable Graham. Can you tell me, if I'm growing palms outdoors in the UK, and I know obviously it's different for the south of the UK and the north, what sort of palms would be best?
Well, you're quite right. There's a lot of variation as to where you can grow palms, depending where you are, whether you're in town or on the coast or in urban areas in the countryside. The one true reliable palm is Trachycarpus fortunei. You cannot go wrong with that. That survived the beast from the east where we are. We've had temperatures down here to minus 16. They survived that, no damage. So you can always have Trachycarpus. The next best one after that is the blue Hesper palm, whose name totally and utterly escapes me. That's a nice palm. That's also very, very hardy, as is Gilead chilensis. Both these can handle about minus 12, minus 14 or thereabouts. But it all depends on the microclimate, and microclimate is key. The next one after that is the canary date palm, the Phoenix canariensis. That can reliably handle 10 to 12 degrees below freezing. And again, if you live on the coast in Brighton or you're in an urban situation or London, then you can get away with these guys, no problem at all. And there's a few other smaller palms that will do the trick as well.
Does it depend on the soil that you've got them in as well?
No, soil doesn't seem to make any difference. A few of the palms, like the Sabal palm and some others, need really well-drained soil, but most of them, it's just bog standard soil, to be honest.
Okay. And I know that you grow some outdoor succulents in your nursery, and also you mentioned cacti. Is there anything that would survive outdoors in the UK?
There is actually quite a lot. I'll start with opuntias. All the opuntias that grow in the Rocky Mountains, in the Appalachian Mountains, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, sadly not in Virginia, or I could break into song, if you know what I mean. Yes. But these guys are all hardy. They can take winter wet. I've had these guys growing outside here when we had minus 16 winter, with rain, with snow, with cold, and they're absolutely fine. It's what they're used to. There's a few of the Chilean a few of the Chilean cacti like Machionepoa pigii. That's as tough as old boots, even though it comes from the Atacama Desert, because there it's mist every day, it's get wet every day. It can take the winter wet. Echinopsis chilensis is another one that can take the winter wet. So certainly there's a good selection of cacti. There's the Semiopuntia imbricata, which grows as far north as Kansas in America. So that's totally hardy as well. The tree cholla, I do believe it's called. This is a little sod, it is. In terms of succulents, again, there's loads. If you're in a mild area, you can get away with more hardy of the agaves. Certainly there's plenty of South African succulents that are totally hardy. A lot of the delospermums and delospermums and all those guys, a lot of them are hardy. Most of the yuccas are very hardy. There's actually a huge list, which is totally hardy, even for our country.
And if it snowed, would you need to go out and get the snow off them? Is it a case of if they get wet and soggy up top?
No,
they're still fine?
It's if they can handle the rain, they can handle the snow. It's not a problem. And one thing you can't do, and I'll throw this in here, is don't tie up your cord lines to protect them from snow. It's the worst thing you can do because it traps the water in the crown and that will rot out the crown. So don't do it.
Okay. Good advice. So if I was looking for some really unusual, exotic-looking trees to put in my garden, what are some of your favourites?
Blimey, where do I start? There's loads. One which I particularly like is called Dead Man's Fingers, which is Decasne fargesia, which has huge Aralia-like leaves. Then it has has little tiny white flowers, which are pretty rubbish. But then it has great big sort of blue seed pods, and it's called Dead Man's Fingers because when they first form, they look literally like a hanging dead hand. And then they go sort of blue, and you can even eat the contents as well. I say contents, you can't eat the seeds, you eat the pith. It's very sticky. But it's a brilliant, brilliant plant, very tropical looking and hardy as hell. It's from China. I love jacaranda, but that's not hard enough unless you live in the middle of London. Chirisia speciosa, which I think they've now changed its name, the little beggars. The silk floss tree, that's hardy to about -10, -12. This is something you can overwinter in a cardboard box, but I'll come on to that a bit later on. What other ones? Oh, some of the erythrinas, not necessarily Christogale, which is the normal boring one, but some of the more funky ones like Latissima with the huge leaves. Again, not hardy, but there are ways of overwintering these guys.
Okay. And talking of overwintering, if someone's got a banana, does it depend what species they've got?
Yeah, totally. The truly hardy one is Basdew. That is the one that everybody grows. You always hear of other bananas which are supposedly fantastically hardy. It comes from, I don't know, the North Himalayas. It's going to be great. They never are. Basdew is the only true reliable one. You've got ones like Sycamensis, which are good, but they're still not hard enough. Again, it comes down to where you live, whether you're in an urban situation, your microclimate. And there are ways, even if you're on the open, of cheating to develop your garden so you can actually protect certain areas of it with shield belts and overplanting and underplanting and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So going back to that method that you've been using to overwinter things, I think you've been using it for what you've described as caudex plants. I'm not going to pretend I know anything about these, so I'm just going to let you talk on this.
Right, caudex plants basically are plants that have created a way of storing water in periods of drought, and they store it in flattened trunks or flattened root systems. And what happens is you could have a nice wet hot summer, and then come the winter or come the summer, whichever way around it is, it goes bone dry, and they shed the leaves, they shed the roots, and they sit there dormant for anything up to 4, 5, 6 months. And then come the rains, they reactivate. For our purposes in a cold climate, you use it for the winter. So I've got these big, I'll give you an example, Erythrina latissima, which I mentioned before, huge leaves, about sort of 2 spans of your hands across. Fantastic thing, not hardy, has a great big swollen root system. And what I do, come October, I let them dry out, I take them out of the pot, I shake off the compost, the leaves fall off, the roots fall off, the little branches fall off, I stick them in a cardboard box. Obviously I label them because otherwise I get all these things muddled up. And I keep them, for my purposes, in our bathroom for the whole winter. And they just sit there, totally naked, in the box for the whole winter. It's coolish in the bathroom, but it's not cold, and it's fairly shaded as well. Then come the spring, and this is where I've gone wrong in the past, I reactivate them now indoors, in that I've literally just popped them all up in the last few days. I've started watering them, and already some of them showing signs of life. What you don't want to do is what I've done in the past, is where I've reactivated them in my polytunnels, and then we've had a cold spell and they've gone and rotted. Once they've got the leaves, they're safe, but before the leaves go, there's danger of rotting. But it's a really cheap way. No central heating, no central heated greenhouses or anything like that. It's just a cardboard box in a room.
And are there any house plants that we might grow from that group that we might think, oh, it's died over winter, but actually it's just going dormant?
No, because most house plants that we grow as house plants tend to be evergreens, so they're growing all year round. If it has faded away over the winter, I'd say you've got a dead plant. Sorry.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. And how about shrubs? What are some of your more favourite ones, and what are some, again, that would survive outdoors in the UK?
Well, I'm afraid this is sound only, so I can't show you my pride and joy, which is an Isopoga anethiflorus, which is a member of the Protea family from Australia, and it's about 4 foot tall, and it's multicoloured because I've starved it, and it's absolutely thumping. When I take this to show at shows, I've had people offer me their wives and their daughters and their mothers to get one of these. It's that wow.
Right, okay. Well,
that's one of my favourite ones.
All right, I'm going to say it a bit.
I like the whole Protea family, your Banksias, your Proteas, and that kind of stuff. A, because they're all pain in the backside to grow, but B, they're so beautiful when they do come to something.
Okay, I will go around your polytunnel and take some pictures, I think, because otherwise it'd be a bit unfair to be talking about all these lovely plants. And how about grasses and restios, that kind of thing?
Restios are reasonably hardy. If you want the foolproof one, go for Baluskian tetraphyllum, which is, of all the restios, it's actually an Australian one, but it is the hardest of the lot. I've had that survive just through -16. the best and most gorgeous resto and it's worth its weight in gold is Calamine grandis, which is absolutely stunning. It's only hard, it's about 12, 14 degrees below, but boy, is it beautiful. Grasses, I've got this lovely, fantastic new one, which I'm trialing, which is called Triarchenia lutoriparia or something like that. This guy is a monster. It hoofs out from nothing to 25 foot, which is what, 5 meters, 6 meters, 7 meters, 8 meters even. 8 in a year. It absolutely knuckles it out. It is wicked.
This isn't that thing you tried to flog me last year that you said they were growing at Dixter and that is...
No.
Is that different? Another thug?
That's different. That's redstone sugarcane. That grows 3 centimetres a day. And that, if Brexit go a bit tits up, you can grind into your own sugar. That's
what was that called again?
That's the redstone sugarcane. Right, Saccharum officinale redstone, I guess. And that's literally 3 centimetres a day. And you can eat the sugar in it.
So that's separate. You've just found another beast.
Oh yeah,
this year.
This is awesome. This is totally hardy. I believe the Germans are using it as a biofuel, but it absolutely thumps it out. I mean, it makes the Arundos look like absolute wussies.
So, in that vein, is there anything new that you're experimenting with this year that you're particularly excited about, apart from that?
Yeah, I mean, my excitement changes from plant to plant. I'm doing some more isopogons because they're just so gorgeous. I'm trying some more pachypodiums because they're just so bizarre. I'm not doing these necessarily for sales. This may not work sales-wise. It's actually for my own pleasure, really. And I'm trying to do some more alpines, in particular North American ones and Chilean ones, simply because they're, in this country anyway, are fairly underdeveloped.
Okay.
And they're all good fun.
Yeah, I bet. So we've spoken in the past about where you get your stock from and how the fact that you don't import stuff allows you to take your stock to places maybe other people couldn't. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yes, at the moment my nursery is 85% self-sufficient, and what I mean by that, we grow, every single sales plant here is born on site, but I still import about 15% of my seeds from abroad, and I'm hoping by December to bring that down to 95% because of certain rule changes, which I'll come on to in a moment. Basically, I want to be a self-generating nursery. I've got to be compliant with Nagoya. I've got to be compliant with CITES. I've got to be compliant with plant health, because I do sell quite a few plants to people at the body shop or to laboratories. And the provenance of the plant has to be absolutely spot on, based mainly for legal reasons and also for cultural reasons.
Okay. What do you sell them to the body shop for, just out of interest?
It's actually for pack shots. It's hilarious. Every 2 years, they must change their PR company every 2 years, because every 2 years they need a new pack shop for a tea tree oil. If you look at the body shop pack shops, I'll let you into a little secret. The plant on it almost certainly isn't the tea tree oil plant. It's a stunt plant, because the tea tree oil is Melaleuca alternifolia. I mean, it usually looks pretty crap for picture taking. Melaleuca linearifolia, leaf-wise, looks identical, but always looks much neater. So they usually take away one alternifolia and a few linearifolia to use for the pack shots. And I suspect it's
a body double.
It's a body double. To the naked eye, you cannot tell the difference. But I know damn well it's not true.
So the fact that you're growing your stuff in-house means that you know that it's clean. Obviously, it's not importing anything.
Lacking pest and disease. There are no pest and diseases in it. They're clean. I get checked by DEFRA every 6 months as well.
Okay.
So.
And that means that you can take your stuff to RHS shows. Is that correct?
Yes. The rules are all changing now. Do you want to launch into the...
Yes, please.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, you can chop that bit then, can't you?
Yeah. That's fine.
The world is changing, especially for plants. Plant health is now paramount importance to the government and DEFRA, mainly for food crops. It's not for horticulture. That we're second fiddle, I'm afraid, at the moment. I won't mention Brexit. That's basically the first gust of wind, but it's not a damaging gust of wind, particularly as far as the horticulture industry goes. The big thing to note is December the 14th. This is when plant health, CITES and Nagoya kick in. Now, Nagoya is a treaty that's formed in Japan in the town of Nagoya, and basically it gives intellectual copyright to plants that are grown in your area. So, for example, let's take hostas. All hostas come from Japan. So if you breed from a hosta and make a cultivar, in theory, that cultivar belongs to Japan. To give you an example where this has gone wrong, a few years back, there's a plant they found in Madagascar which helps treat, I think, leukemia. And the drug companies developed it, processed it, grew it, and made a fortune out of it. Madagascar got bugger all. And so this is the thinking behind it, that you have copyright belonging to the country of origin. What this means for growers is, especially with seed, from now on, you have to have permission from the government to collect the seed or the plant material to be able to resell it. And for us, the buyers, we need to know that the seed people and the plant people have Nagoya permission. If they don't, not only can they be prosecuted, we can be prosecuted. And so you need to take due diligence. You have to ask who you're buying from. Do you have permission to either collect these plants or grow these plants or use these plants? Because otherwise you can be tracked down and you'll be fined and prosecuted. That's Nagoya. CITES, actually I'll go on to plant health. As of December the 14th, all plants crossing into this country's border, and this is going to happen whatever happens, whether Brexit does or doesn't go ahead or whatever, they will need a phytosanitary certificate. All plant shipment, every single one will need a phyto. Furthermore, seeds, a lot of seeds will need phytos. For example, all conifer seeds will need phytosanitary certificates because they can carry pest and disease. Add a guess, same goes for lupins because they can carry virus. So you'll need phytos for that. That's number one. The big thing, the real big bad gust of wind is CITES. And this is endangered animals, endangered plants. And roughly what ways works out, every single plant that is covered under CITES, whether it's endangered or red listed or whatever, will then incur, I think, a fine or a permit cost, which I believe is about £70, maybe €70, but I think it's £70 per species to cross the border. So, for example, all cacti come under CITES. So if you're buying in cacti, you'll need a phytosanitary certificate, you'll need an import license, you'll need to give customs 3 days notice, and for every species, and I suspect cultivar, because to have a cultivar from a species, you need the species in the first place. So I think they'll be covered as well. You've got to pay £70. So if you're buying 10 different types of cacti, 10 plants each, you're paying £700 for those 100 plants just to bring them over, plus phytos, plus everything else. This is going to change our industry upside down. Basically, DEFRA don't want people to bring and ship plants around. What they're worried about is Xylella. We just heard only the other day, which will be middle of March, there's been a Xylella outbreak in Portugal in the Algarve, and that came through on imported lavenders. It's really serious. It can damage food crops. DEFRA are paranoid about it. They want to knock out the market traders and people who don't grow their plants so they can't ship plants in. And within a few hours of the plants arriving in our markets and towns are being sold, and if there's an infection, the outbreak is out there. So this is going to be a huge, huge game changer. However, medium to long term, I think it's going to be brilliant for the industry. Short term, yes, suddenly there'll be a lack of plants, there'll be a shortage of plants, the prices will go up and demand will increase or decrease, whatever, but the prices will go up. But what this means, those of us who do grow and those of us who are ready will make a bit more money, and it suddenly becomes a viable option. Now, the problem with this industry, in terms of nurseries, there is a huge decreasing number of nurseries. We are literally dying on the job. And when I say that, I literally do mean that. I was at Cardiff. Some poor bloke went outside to get some more seeds for his display, had a heart attack, killed over, carked it, bless his heart, end of story. They're low, and this is happening at the time. They're either retiring or, I know one shouldn't laugh, but we're either retiring or dying. No one's coming into this industry, apart from maybe a few plant nerds who love their plants so much they start a nursery, not for business reasons, because it's not a great business model, but because they love growing plants. This is really unhealthy for our industry. Now, if we start making a bit more money, people from outside the industry are going to look and go, hey, look, I fancy working outdoors. I don't particularly care about plants, but I like working with nature. I want to be outside. I want to feel the sun on my back. I'll start a nursery. But they'll bring in different skill sets and mindsets and different ways of doing things. For example, the industry is very, very, if I can use the word, retarded. If I've been told once, I've been told 100 times. Don't put seedlings in great big pots. You need to put them in a little pot, bigger pot, bigger pot, bigger pot. I've never done that. In 20 years, I've never, ever done that. I'll put tiny little baby tree seedlings into great big 20-litre pots. I've never lost one. I've lost them for other reasons, but never for rotting out. It's absolute fallacy. And it's challenging these ideas. We need to bring the industry forward. If these people start coming in the medium to long term, we'll get a greater diversity in nurseries, a greater diversity in plants, better quality plants. Yes, slightly more expensive, but it can only be good for the industry. And that way we can push the industry forward, because the industry is really, really important for our health and for our wealth. We need gardening to keep us alive on this planet.
Lovely, well said. So if I wanted to extrapolate that into some scenarios,
yes,
if I am if I've got a small holding,
Yes.
I decide that I want to flog my plants at the farmer's market on a weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and I also want to collect some seeds and sell those too. How does that affect me? And I'm thinking Nagoya for that. How does that affect me?
As long as you're collecting from your own stock. For example, with my plants, I'm making damn certain that everything I'm collecting from or cutting from is originally at least 2 years old, and that puts me out of reach from Nagoya.
Does it? Is
Yes.
that the time limit on that?
That's the safe time limit.
Right. Okay.
So I'm not quite sure how far it goes back, but I know if anything I'm taking from more than 2 years old, I'm totally covered. You're safe, because it's very hard to have retrospective laws. It's like saying, okay, the speed limit's gone down from 70 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour, and we're going to backdate it 10 years. Everybody was speeding at 70 miles on the motorway, gets nicked. You can't do that, because at the time it wasn't illegal. So for that reason, with Nagoya, if you've got 2-year-old material, you're safe. If you're buying in seeds, for example, I buy my seeds from Chili Flora, which is a company in Chile, although I don't think Chile have signed up to Nagoya. But all I need to do is email Chile and say, hey, look, have you got permission to collect these seeds and sell these seeds to me? And they'll say, yes, we have, in which case I'm covered for Nagoya and I can do what I like with them. Whether I can produce a hybrid from it or a plant breeder's rights plant from it, I don't know yet. I haven't looked into that. Mm-hmm. I suspect there may be problems with that because the copyright to that plant still belongs to Chile, for example.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Okay.
So it depends where you're generating your material from. If it's from your own stock, yeah, you should be okay.
And if I bought a variegated monstera and I took I layered it and took some cuttings and sold them via eBay.
Now, with eBay, you've got to be very, very careful.
I know I'm not going to hold you to this, and I'm not expecting you to have all the answers, because it sounds as if this is very new.
It is very new, complex.
Yeah.
People worrying. I was speaking to a cacti chap who was saying that he's thinking that with all these rule changes, all descend to eBay and people buy things illegally on eBay, it's really easy to be caught on eBay. So easy. I'll give you, for example, there's a neighbour of mine who should remain nameless. She's extremely rich. I think she's worth 125 million pounds, got lots of land, and she put in a glamping thing on one bit of a land. And because she's extremely rich, she's also very tight, bless her heart. So she didn't bother to get any relevant permits or permissions or what have you. Within about 3-4 months, they'd caught her because, of course, she had it on the website advertising glamping. And all they had to do was type in to Google glamping southeast. Oh, 7 names. Right, that one's got permission, that one's got permission, that one hasn't, and that one hasn't. Not knock on the door, you're nicked, my son. And the same with eBay. If, say, you're selling, for example, Manihot carthenogensis, which, say, for example, is under CITES and it's endangered red list and you're not allowed to sell it, you've got to advertise it. All they've got to do is type in Manihot carthenogensis. He comes up, double check the address of the person. Are they registered to sell it? No, they're not. You're nicked. And I'll tell you what, we'll let you off half the fine if you tell us who your customers are, because we'll nick them as well. So I would suspect you've got to be careful with doing that.
Okay. So with the phyto certificates, again, say I'm buying, and again, I don't know if I am citing the right legislation here, but if I'm buying plants from the continent, so I might be a garden designer, imagine that, and I might deal with nurseries that are on the continent and they are shipping stuff to me.
Yes.
Who's responsible for checking it's got the right paperwork? Is it me or them?
I don't know. I mean, I'll put a caveat here in this. What I'm saying, a lot of it is my opinion. It's information I've gleaned from various different sources. There isn't actually anybody yet who knows everything that's going on, because some of it's still being formulated. So a lot of it's guesswork. With the phytos, I don't know. Certainly, you've got to make certain that you have the phytos in place. I assume the people who are selling the plants issue the phytos, because they're the ones who have to have it checked, because then their plant health people come and see them and check, yep, he's free of disease, free of pests, yep, here's your phyto, you can now sell these plants. I think you can get a license that covers you for a couple of months, so they don't have to check you every shipment. You'd never get anywhere. All you have to do is make certain that you have the correct documents when they come through to you. And DEFRA will check that. They've had a huge staff increase, huge budget increase, and they are really going to get hot on plant movement. And don't think this isn't going to happen. This is going to happen. Right.
So the bottom line, I think, is that we can definitely bank on prices going up of plants.
I would have thought so, yes, certainly initially. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of the plants that are mass-produced in certain countries who I won't mention, it's a recipe for disaster with pests and diseases, because they're literally, it's like the busy lesions with the virus that destroyed the whole selection. but they are managed to mass produce them at very, very cheap rates. And you're seeing business models where they don't care if the plants die because they do not sell a return. It's trying to sell them off. So the quality is poor. So you're paying for poor quality, basically. If you want a plant to last, it's like food. You can buy cheap food, which isn't particularly good for you, because everything has a reason why the price is the way it is. Something's cheap because there's a reason for it. Something's expensive because there's a reason for it. Same with plants. If the plants are cheap, there's a good reason. They're probably not good quality. They're probably not properly grown. They may have loads of chemicals in them, which if you're trying to do a wildlife garden is not good. I think a few years ago, when they were pushing wild flowers for bees and what have you, all the mass-produced wildflower plants were riddled with insecticides, pesticides, and everything else, which basically killed the bees. So what you're doing is buying plants to kill your bees. The complete opposite of what we're trying to do. So again, there's a reason for it. Nothing is cheap. Nothing is free in this world. If something is free, you've got to ask yourself the reason, why is that free? Nothing comes for free.
No, that's very true. And also, I think the beauty of trying to stick to British grown or locally grown even is that when you get plants that have been shipped in, A, they've been forced to look really good, and quite often they will flop as soon as you try and put them in a normal situation. And B, they quite often have an explosion of pests or diseases because they've been suppressed to such a great degree when they've been grown under glass.
They're basically drug addicts. They're the hooks and the fertilizers and the chemicals they've had. And the other thing also, it makes sense. It's in this day and age, we're trying to cut down our plastic use, we're trying to cut down our fossil fuel use. So if we're buying locally and shopping locally, and this doesn't just go for the UK, this goes for all the countries to produce their own plants, it's going to be a better thing because there's less air miles, there's less lorry miles, you're giving employment to local people, it's a craft industry. Throwing this out there as well, the way manufacturing is going with artificial intelligence running machines, the way forward for the humans in terms of business is to have more craft individual businesses. And we see that with craft beers, we see that with the craft gin things that are opening up, bespoke jewelry, people doing handmade, and it's the skills. We're still a long way yet from any AI, artificial intelligence, being able to be as creative as a human being can be. And the same with plants. If we can have more craft plants, shall we say, where people have, one person specialises in hellebores and woodland plants, somebody else specialises in desert plants, this can only be good for the industry.
I agree. I told you we were in for some dramatic revelations. I hope you found this illuminating, particularly if you're in a position where you may be affected by these issues. A really, really big thank you to Graham for his insight into the world of exotic plants and also the lesser-known world of plant imports and the upcoming legislation. Don't forget to check out his website, www.plantbase.co.uk, and keep an eye out for Graham at plant fairs and flower shows. He'll be the one with the most dramatic stand in the venue. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next Tuesday.